Do not for 1 minute think that this is not the worst thing that could possibly happen to you. Short of a crippling disease or death, this is the worst thing that can happen, is if you lose, and most guys do. It breaks their hearts. The children suffer. So you have to be strong. I want to talk to you again about the importance of not falling prey to your attorney. Attorneys are smart characters. They're born persuaders. That's why they're in this field. They're going to try to tell you that what I'm telling you is wrong in this way or that way, in some small... Don't you believe it for a second. There's one way to win, and that's the way I'm telling you right now. You must fight, and if you're a good parent, you're likely to win if your attorney does all these things that I'm telling you they must do. If you let down your guard for 1 minute, they're going to figure out a way to get out of this because they don't want to do it. If you do, you will lose a lot of money. And we're not talking hundreds here, we're talking many thousands. You're going to spend many thousands and you're going to get nothing. Absolutely nothing but a lifetime of heartache because you're going to get alienated from these children. Do not for 1 minute think that this is not the worst thing that could possibly happen to you. Short of a crippling disease or death, this is the worst thing that can happen, is if you lose, and most guys do. It breaks their hearts. The children suffer. So you have to be strong. Now, I want to remind you of why this is important that you listen to me, because I win. I have won. I've won at the Court of Appeals level. I've won at the Supreme Court level, not once, not twice, numerous times. I've not lost. When you interview your attorney, I guarantee you, you're going to be shocked, and so is the attorney. If you give them a questionnaire. We have a questionnaire and we're going to post it. That questionnaire asks them such things as, have you gone to trial in a child custody case? Have you won? Have you secured joint physical and legal custody for a father, etc., etc., etc.? The odds are the answer is going to be no on almost every question that you're going to ask. And at that point, you're going to be asking yourself, so why am I hiring this person? Well, I got news for you. You don't have a whole lot of choice, because the reality is there's very few of them out there that have ever gone through these trials, and almost none of them have ever won for these fathers, and that's why you don't very often find a father. And I'm going to warn you about something else now, and that is taking advice. There's a ton of people out there that are well-meaning, that are going to be offering you advice. Don't listen to them. Not unless they can answer those questions that you are asking your attorney. Have you actually won? You're not in a position to be giving advice if all you've done is lost. They can tell you, this is what happened to me, but that doesn't lead necessarily to the conclusions that they're going to suggest to you. All that does is tell you that they lost. So these are not the kind of people you want to listen to. And that's going to be true with most of these attorneys, as I said. But it's especially going to be true when you're dealing with fathers' rights groups. I've been participating with these people for many, many years. Many of these people are close, good friends of mine. Not very many of them have ever won anything. And that's why you have to be very, very careful about taking strategic advice from these people. They don't themselves know how to win. You want to take the advice of people that know how to win. You're not going to be able to find people like that, so that's why this tape is so critically important to you. You want to review it and review it and review it and take notes about the important things that you have to have. The dozen or so factors, and you have to have a trial date, And you have to prepare yourself on each one of those factors. If you've done those things, we've taken you a long way down the line towards winning. I'm not going to be available to you to consult on your case. You're going to have to figure those things out between you and your attorney. But with these guidelines, you at least have a chance. Most people don't have any chance at all. They don't realize it, and they spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to get this, as I said at the beginning of the initial part of this conversation. They get nothing worse than the guy who sits in a corner drinking a beer and crying in his beer glass. That's what you get for those thousands and thousands of dollars. Nothing more. They can compare notes on almost any given day. Pull out your divorce decree and start reading them over. They all look pretty much the same. They're dismal failures. And it doesn't make any difference whether they had an attorney or not. So don't assume that this attorney knows what they're doing. If you do that, that's your first big mistake. I think that's as good as we can do here. And in the future, as we think of other things that might be helpful to you, we'll try to post them on the video site and the website in a video format. And in addition to that, we're going to have some hard copy things that are on there, like the questionnaire for the attorney. With those tools, I think you got a good shot. And if you're a good father, as I say, you should have an opportunity to win.
I've got you.
All right, we're going to read the attorney questionnaire on tape. How many divorce cases have you handled as lead attorney where child custody was a matter in dispute? How many divorce cases with a child custody dispute have you handled where the case went all the way through a trial and resulted in a judge entering a decision as opposed to the result being an agreement of the parties? How many divorce cases with a child custody dispute component have you handled wherein you presented evidence at trial about your client as relates to the various factors included for determining the best interest of a child? How many divorce cases have you handled where during the pendency of the case you received a specific trial date? How many divorce cases with a child custody dispute component have you handled where you examined your own mental health witness during a trial? A trial, not a hearing. How many times in such cases have you taken an interlocutory appeal? By that we mean an appeal during the case as it's going forward, not after the case is over. How many times in such cases have you prepared a case for your client in such a way as to perfect as best as reasonably possible a record for appeal that allows for making a good case that the judge's decision was arbitrary and or capricious in that the decision could not be justified based on any objective standard, but rather where the judge relied only on vague and unmeasurable standards that have no real place in a child custody determination? How many times? How many times in such cases have you taken an appeal of a judge's decision that went against the interest of your client as regards child custody? Do you challenge preliminary orders to assure that the plaintiff is not able to have their cake and eat it too by getting a court to collude in establishing what the plaintiff will later assert amounts to an established custodial environment? Do you always challenge those preliminary orders? Assuming you have time, have you ever failed to challenge a preliminary order that provides an advantage to the other side? Those are the questions that you need to ask an attorney. The answers aren't going to be comfortable for the attorney. Don't worry about that. The important thing is, by asking the questions, you're putting the attorney on notice that you have resources beyond what most clients have, or you wouldn't be asking those questions. That should put the fear of God into your attorney, and that's the kind of relationship you want. You do not want a relationship where they think they're in charge of the case. They're not in charge of the case. You're in charge of the case. That's why you're paying them. And it's important that you keep that in mind. You must establish a solid relationship like that with your attorney at the onset. Otherwise, you're going to be in for a big shock at the end. Not only the bill, but the big loss.